As a member of Gen Z, I've been intrigued by Dave Ramsey's buzz on social media and his approach to financial success. Some swear by his principles, while others have pretty valid criticisms and concerns. So I decided it's time to give my take on the matter. In today's video, we'll be talking about Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps method, and I'll be examining how realistic and applicable it is for someone like me, someone young, Gen Z, navigating the financial landscape. We'll break down each step and some of the pros and cons, and explore whether this method truly holds the key to financial success in our current climate, or whether it's just one of those one-size-fits-all financial products. All right, so let's jump right into it. But before we start, be sure to like and subscribe if you like this content.
Settings and what became Financial Peace University. It used to be called Life After Debt. And it started becoming what we now call the baby steps. And the interesting thing is that now the baby steps have gone into the Total Money Makeover book, which has sold almost 10 million copies. And they have become the proven plan, the shortest distance between where you are now and wealth.
Yeah, I don't know about the fastest way to get to financial success. There have been proven methods that show that the avalanche method will get you out of debt quicker and have you paying less interest. So compared to the snowball method that Dave Ramsey often professes, definitely not the fastest, but it definitely is a proven method, like that there's no wrong way to pay off credit card debt. Doing as much as you can as quickly as possible is essentially the best way to go about it, but there's a mathematical component to it too. Let's see if he mentions that. I doubt he does, but we'll continue on, and as he mentions the steps, I'll give you updates here.
Between where you are now and wealth. Where you are, if you'll live like no one else later, you can live and give like no one else. What is the shortest distance? And we need a path to run on, because the way you eat an elephant, it's overwhelming. Do I do my 401k with the match, or my kid's college? Or do I have an emergency fund? Or do I pay on this 18% credit card debt? Or, and nothing gets done. You get paralysis of the analysis, you get frozen.
Yeah, he does have a very good point there. If people do not have a system in place, I profess a mathematical system in place to profess how to pay off the debt and go about effectively allocating your next dollar, then it does become very overwhelming. And it seems like a lot of general Americans don't have as much financial knowledge, so it could get overwhelming as time progresses.
Absolutely. And this step, these baby steps have worked for me. They've worked for millions, and it's really simple. If you do it, they work. And it all starts with baby step 1, having this foundation, saving $1,000 for a starter emergency fund. This is just a small buffer between you and life before we start tackling the debt.
Exactly. And if you have $1,000 already, great, just set that aside. That's your baby step 1. Any money you have that's not retirement, anything you can sell that is not retirement, you're going to liquidate it. If it's not retirement, you got some stock over here that Grandpa left you. You got a gold bar under your bed. I don't know what it is, but you got any money that's above $1,000. Maybe you got $10,000 in a savings account. That's $9,000 you've got that you don't need past baby step 1. We're going to put it all on baby step 2. And baby step 2 is the famous one. That's the debt snowball, where you list your debts smallest to largest. You pay minimum payments on everything but the little one, and you attack the little one with a vengeance.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I definitely think it's more beneficial to have that emergency fund. I definitely don't agree with $1,000 for step 1 because things are excessively expensive nowadays, at least compared to when people profess how much it is to just change a couple tires or whatever it is that comes up in the day-to-day. Your transmission goes. There are a lot of expenses that could come up that are more than $1,000. Unexpected medical expense, you spend a couple days in the hospital, and then you reach your deductible already for a year. So I think the $1,000 method isn't really great for this. I think personally, it should be at least 1 month of expenses to completely saved and set aside in a savings fund. I don't have a specific issue with someone saving more if they're known to have large expenses come up here and there, or they have young children. Because the main issue with people getting into credit card debt is the fact that they do not have money set aside. So if you are doing step 1 and you are attacking and you've completed step 1, you have $1,000 set aside, and you're attacking step 2 by applying all your extra dollars to your debt. What if a once in a lifetime event happens and you owe someone $3,000? What are you gonna do? It's gonna go right back into that credit cards to pay for things. Either you pay that person directly the $3,000 and then all your expenses for that month go to credit card debt, or you just put the expense on credit cards anyways, or you ask for a payment plan, then you're right back to the first step. And another way to think about it is not all debt is equal. There is high interest debt that is eating you alive when it comes to a financial progress you're having. But there's also a lot of low interest debt. Like, let's say you have a car that's at 2%, you bought it back in 2021. I have a car that's a very low interest rate debt that is an asset. I have more equity than I owe. I owe about $2,000-$3,000 now, and the car's worth like 12 or 13. There's no reason for me to pay off that debt continuously when I am at the point financially where the debt is so minuscule in terms of the whole financial landscape I'm in. And I've paid down most of the debt. The way the amortization works, I paid down most of the debt on the car loan so far. So the last couple of payments, me paying them down as quickly as possible is not necessarily gonna save me more next dollar. So those first 2 steps I kind of have an issue with. I think the best way to go about it is to save about $3,000 to $5,000 or however much your 1 month of expenses is. I think that's a good range for most people. And then that second step, attacking all debt, you should list the debt in perspective of interest rates. Anything above 5 or 6 should be paid off as soon as possible. Personally, I have debt but it is very, very low interest rate. I have a car loan, I have some student loans, and no credit card debt, which is of high interest rate. So there's no reason for me to apply my next dollar towards that debt when I have a steady income, I have emergency funds. So I think it would be really helpful to gain a little bit of perspective. There's an aspect of this financial process that you have to really take into account. Yes, for everyone, this step will work and you will get to a place of financial security if you follow this method. But I don't think that's the best way to go about it when you could be saving yourself hundreds or thousands of dollars by going through this staggered approach as opposed to just paying off all debt except your home. But we'll continue with Dave here.
Thing but the little one, and you attack the little one with a vengeance. Side note, baby step 1 should not take you more than 30 days. Maximum. You need to work extra, sell some stuff, have a garage sale, put the kids on Craigslist, whatever you got to do here. Let's get it done. And you know, we're going to get busted into this, get $1,000 quick. Baby step 2, you should be debt-free, but your house. Now, you may have to sell a stupid boat.
I don't think Dave understands the assets most people have. They don't have the means to just be selling things to pay off their debt. And even if they do, some of it's like essential things, like the biggest financial asset that people can technically sell on a whim is a car. Some people need that car to go to work every day. If the going were to get tough and I needed $10,000 quick, I would absolutely sell my car. But most people need that car for certain things. I think a $12,000 car, selling it to go get a $3,000 car, and the $9,000 difference attacking your low interest debt of student loans isn't going to add up and make any substantial progress in your financial journey.
You may have to take an extra job, but most people that have followed the Total Money Makeover baby steps in Financial Peace University are debt-free inside of 2 years.
Yeah, and that's with doing it with some gazelle intensity, like you talk about in Financial Peace University. And once you pay off all that debt, now you freed up all those payments, right? You have that income
Think
back
about
in
what
your
it'd be
life.
like to have no payments but a house payment. Wow.
We're breathing easy. And then we can move on to baby step 3, where we save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund.
That is a great third step. Yeah, 3 to 6 months of expenses is critical. At any point in your financial journey, I would probably do that after high interest debt, as I said, more than 6%. And also there is a step I think personally that Dave Ramsey is missing here, and that is 401k match or any sort of match, HSA match if you have a high deductible health plan. That is basically free money. You cannot go wrong by attacking that or obtaining that from your employer. As of right now, it would be $3,000 to $5,000 as a 1 month buffer. The number 2 would be that 401k HSA match. And then from there, I would attack all high interest debt from 6% or higher. Any debt that is above that 6% rate, definitely attack it as soon as possible. And then this emergency fund needs to be loaded up. So great third step here by Dave Ramsey. I think that's critical. I think the order is a little bit not ideal, but I definitely think this is a step that everyone should be able to follow.
This is the final buffer where we say we're never going back into debt because we are the bank now.
Yep. Grandma's rainy day fund. Why? It's going to rain. Dave, you need to be positive. I'm positive. It's going to rain. You need to be ready when crap happens. There's a pandemic coming around every corner. There's something coming, and if you have $20,000 cash in the bank, 3 to 6 months of expenses, whatever it is, and you have no payments, you are the third pig in the 3 little pigs, the one that's in the brick house when the big bad wolf comes. You're ready for life. You're ready to go. Now you're ready to build wealth. But that you just now have gotten up to ground zero.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's absolutely essential to have those expenses all ready to go. Those 3 to 6 months, you can lose a job, get laid off. There could be another pandemic with maybe it attacks a certain area of the country and there isn't stimulus for the whole country. Whatever it is, having those 3 to 6 months should be critical. I think we should err on the side of 6 months rather than 3 because that doesn't give you nearly as much buffer, especially if you have family or kids. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, I'm a young member of Gen Z. I do not have any people relying on me, any dependents, but I think it's very smart to have a 6-month emergency fund. If your job market gets gobbled up by AI, you have to pivot, whatever it is. 6 months is probably ideal, and I'm glad Dave Ramsey is acknowledging this stuff.
You've just now gotten up to even. When you have that emergency fund and you're debt free, now you're ready to build wealth. And in baby step 4, you put 15% of your income aside into good growth stock mutual funds in retirement plans. Start where there's a match. Beyond the match, always do Roth. And if you've exhausted Roth and match and still are not to 15%, then go on to a traditional 401k or IRA.
I think we probably should go higher than that. I think it's a little conservative to think 15% is going to be fine. And his prescription of go Roth beyond a match is not ideal for everyone. We don't know everyone's specific financial situation, but this would be not ideal if you're going to have higher taxes later in life rather than now. There's no real prescription. I think this is good general advice for people to at least get their retirement savings ball rolling, but saying it blanket like this is not prescriptive to everyone's issues.
But do Roths before traditional and do match before Roths. It's mathematically in your favor to do that, up to the 15%. Don't do 20%, don't do 11%, do 15%. Why?
Yeah, I definitely disagree with not doing more. As a young person, if you are, let's say, 25, you do 15%, you'll be in a really good place. I'm 26 now. So yeah, most people my age, if you're watching this video, 15% definitely works for you, especially in the long run, because you have many years. If you're someone who's in your 30s or potentially in your 40s, and you don't have any retirement savings, you have a lot of catching up to do. You definitely have to do more than the prescriptive 15%. So maybe go above and beyond, but to each their own. They all have their own financial perspective, and definitely speak to a financial advisor about this, or I don't know, potentially calculate what your retirement number is, control the assets you'll need in retirement to last the 4%. It all depends on how much you burn, when you're trying to retire as well. But I do think this is a good blanket statement for most people. As I said previously, I don't know if this is just going to be blanket statement advice. 15% is pretty good, but if you are above 30, you probably have to do more.
While you are doing baby steps 4, you're also going to be doing 5 and 6 simultaneously.
Absolutely. So baby step 5 is where we're saving for our children's college fund. And this is going to look different for everyone. There's no set number here because it really depends on your situation.
They have to go to college debt-free. They cannot participate in this epic student loan system failure that is called America right now. It is horrible out there. Do not let your kids go in debt. You do not have to go to debt. Go to community college for free for 2 years. Go to in-state school, work 6 jobs, get scholarships. Our student loan problem is a parenting problem. Mom and dad let kids sign up for crap they couldn't afford.
They got to have the conversations. That's where it starts. And
So-
there's a reason you say baby step 4, invest for yourself before the kids, because there's a 100% chance you're going to retire. There's a 50-50 chance or less these days that your kid's going to go to college.
I don't have any kids, so I can't really prescribe for children, or at least give too much of an opinion there. Maybe when I do have children, I'll have a different perspective on this, but I don't think it is in your best financial interest to commit to paying for your children's education. Student loans, federal student loans, even private student loans can have very low interest rates. I have student loans of less than barely over 4% interest rate. So if the interest rate is really that low and you're paying for all your education, that might be the lowest debt you have moving forward once the child graduates. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, especially when you don't know. If you're just doing 15% and then you start committing to your child's college education, who knows if you are even close to retiring, if you are close to your retirement goals yourself. I don't think you should prioritize your children over yourself. Like you said, like George said, George Camel here, you have 100% chance of retiring. If you survive that long, God willing, you will retire. But your children, who knows if they want to save for education or they want to go to college. You do not necessarily need to save for their education. You could deal with it when it comes. And that 3-4% student loan debt, if you were to put that in the stock market, you'd be getting a bunch more. So I think it's a kind of misaligned allocation of your next dollar bill. But I don't think that's the perfect way to go about this.
So this is important. So while you're doing 15%, you do whatever you need to do for your kids' college, whatever you decide to do for your kids' college. Beyond that, if you can find any money, you do that on baby step 6, and that's pay off your house. Start chunking on the house.
Most people have home loans under 4% currently after the pandemic. A lot of people are refinanced or have had commitments from the last financial crisis back in 2008. They have low mortgage interest rates. There's no specific reason you should be going above and beyond to be paying off that home unless you're about to retire. Then I think it's beneficial to have that security of knowing that your house is yours. But I completely disagree. I've talked to someone who bought a house 20 years ago in Cleveland, Ohio, and sold it 20 years later when they had to move to find a new job, and they sold it for the same exact price. Same exact price. What's the point of having your home paid off if you could be allocating your dollars to retirement or into the stock market or wherever else if you're going to sell a house for the same exact price you bought it for 20 years later? The home market has been going up a lot lately in a lot of different markets, but you don't have that crystal ball. You don't know where the next hot housing market, the next Austin, the next Charlotte, the next San Francisco 10 years ago is going to be. So because you don't know, there's no reason to jump leaps and bounds unless you have high interest mortgage debt.
Now, when you're in 1 through 3, you are so intense your friends are freaking out. Your grandmother thinks you need counseling. You are gazelle intense like a gazelle running from a cheetah. When you're in 4 through 7, you're not intense anymore. You are now intentional. You're just doing it on purpose. But you're no longer on beans and rice. You're on beans and rice, rice and beans. Scorched earth on 1 through 3 till you get those 3 things done. Now, get that house paid off. The average person following this stuff is paying off their home in about 7 or 8 years. Now,
in my baby steps, my personal baby steps, Yeah, I think those 1 through 4, you should be scrounging away as much money as you can to get to that point where you have 3 to 6 months of emergency funds. That first step, obviously, I said was $3,000 to $5,000 of expenses. Then step 2 is your 401k or HSA match. And step 3, your high interest debt. Yeah, I think if you have interest rates that are high, those first 3 or 4 steps are essential. Not having an emergency fund, step 4, is an essential, is an emergency. You need to scrounge that money together because you don't know when your next paycheck is coming as a W-2 worker, or even if you're an independent contractor, things can get bogged up and your 1099 money may not come in, or if you're relying on a company to pay for a sponsorship, they might be delayed. They might be going through their own financial issues. So having that 6-month emergency fund is very critical to this process. To reach that step 4, then you could dial back the intensity a little bit less, but but make sure you are still paying your bills on time and allocating all your money to your expenses, and then ramping up that amount of money towards retirement based on how old you are and how much money more you need to reach your financial independence number, as they call it in the FIRE community.
That tells us that the whole program is taking about 10 years, and the average baby steps millionaire, the average everyday millionaire that we've studied, we're finding them become a millionaire from the time they start with intensity followed by intentionality, become a millionaire in about 10 and a half years.
Yeah.
11.2 years, 10.6 years are the two numbers we keep running into. So this is completely possible.
Yeah, and once you pay off that house, it's time to build wealth and give outrageously in baby step 7. That's where it ends.
Yeah, you will be a millionaire shortly after your home is paid for if you don't at that moment. And then you continue to build wealth, and you raise your generosity.
Yeah, that last step is definitely amazing. Just continue to build wealth and give to your community. I think it's essential to be giving back. It makes you feel good long term. But yeah, I think I am at step 7 in my financial journey. So I think it's very effective to be giving, and it makes you feel part of something bigger than yourself. It's not all about hoarding money for yourself.